Welcome to The Firehouse, the show dedicated to the brave men and women who serve our community.
Welcome, and how is everybody doing? This is The Firehouse on WRHU 88.7. I am your host, Chris Moses, and today, sitting with me in The Firehouse is Edwin Wilmarth. Did I say it right?
You did.
The third.
Yes, the third.
See, I was like, I was practicing to make sure that I got it right.
There's a distinction.
So, when I introduce people, I really don't want to go too much into what they do because I like for them to introduce themselves. So, if you can introduce yourself to the audience, tell them what department, what company, if applicable, how many years you've been in the volley service, and also what ranks you've held.
All right, so my name is Ed Wilmarth, the third.
The third.
We have that distinction because my father's still a member.
He's
got like 57 years in the department, somewhere in that neighborhood. I joined in '93, so I have 31 years in as a junior. You know, I started as a junior in '93. I was 14, and then once I turned 18, I was able to get into the senior department, as we call it, and I've been 26 years in the senior department.
Wow.
So
they had a volley out there. I mean, not a volley, a juniors.
Yes, they still have a junior department out there.
What age do they start with the juniors?
It's 14 to 18.
14. Okay.
And it's affiliated with the Boy Scouts of America. It's an Explorer post.
Okay.
And I became a senior in 1998, in April of '98, and I've held every fire rank that the department has. I was never an EMT, even though we run EMS as well in my department. Okay. I'm from the Broad Channel Fire Department, and that's in Queens. Yes, there are volunteer fire companies in the city of New York.
That's why this is so interesting, because they're from Broad Channel, which is in Queens, but everyone knows is that in the boroughs, it's, city, it's FDNY.
Yeah, it's the FDNY, right.
So, you know what? Before we get into that, because that's going to be huge, that dynamic, what makes you want to be a firefighter? Where did that start from? Why did you want to join the juniors? Where did that all start from?
So, what's interesting is, like I said, my father is a member, but when I was a young kid, he was off and running with his own career because he joined in the 60s.
Okay.
So he already did a solid 20-something, up until like when I was born.
Wow.
So he, you become, like an exempt or a life member after a certain amount of time.
Yep.
So, he was concentrating more on family and life and slowed down a lot less because he had already went through every rank himself all the way up to like deputy chief. And so he just kind of bowed out for a little while, was still coming and going and making his meetings and do his little things, had the older timers at the time, even though he wasn't that old, but probably considered an older timer even then.
Gave 20 years. It was time to sit back for a
He's got to do
bit.
his thing, what I mean? So I didn't really know. We didn't have anything around the house, nothing like that even said that he was ever a volley. He didn't have a plaque hanging. He didn't have a blue light in the car. He didn't have any of that.
And you know how volunteers, we have stuff all
right?
over the place.
I didn't have anything. So growing up, I didn't really know
Okay.
that he was a volley. He didn't really mention it. He didn't really talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in elementary school, a couple of my buddies that were, 6 months older than me or whatever, joined the junior department.
Okay.
The elementary school was right across the street from Firehouse.
Okay.
So you would hear the siren go off every day, and you'd hear the rigs go out every day.
They come out once a year and do fire prevention and all that stuff?
Yeah, all that stuff.
Okay, all right.
So my buddies joined, and they were like, "Oh, you should come in." And I was all right. Well, I got to wait till I'm, 14 or 13, whatever, And they let me in actually a little bit early. No, but I didn't know why. You know what I mean? It was because I'm a legacy. You know what I mean? But I didn't even realize. I didn't know I was a legacy.
So that was what started it, and then from there, hooked from there,
immediately.
Right? All right,
immediately hooked.
So now in Broad Channel, there's only one firehouse, right?
Correct.
One firehouse, and you're running an engine, a truck, ambulance out of it, like?
Nah, no truck.
Oh, so no truck.
All luck.
Sorry, truckies. No, I'm just playing. But
all
I'm
luck,
pretty
no
sure
truck.
you do the. I'm pretty sure you do a truck work, of course. If you know. So,
right.
So how does that work? So you're running an engine and a ambulance?
Yeah, there's two engine companies.
Okay.
Two ambulance companies, and a water rescue company. Because Broad Channel is an actual island surrounded by water on all sides. Broad Channel Island, and there's a bridge at the north end and the south end that connect us to the Rockaway Peninsula on the south end of us, and the Queens landmass is north of us. But we're literally an island. We're not connected to anything.
Wow.
So you have to cross a bridge to get to Broad Channel. To get to you. On either side or by boat.
And it's so crazy because a lot of people don't even know this is in Queens. Like,
yeah, when you arrive in Broad Channel, you do not feel like you're in New York City. You know what I mean? You're in the shadows of New York City, as we like to call it. It's like a little miniature Venice. Venice, Italy. Yeah, it has canals, and everybody has a dock and a boat. And then when the big storms come in, you're going to see boats going up and down blocks.
You took the words out of my mouth, because I'm pretty sure if you said 93 you've been in, you went through Sandy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was the
So let's get into these stories. Yeah, I know you got some stories, but let's start with a Sandy story, because if you have channels and you have all this stuff going through Broad Channel, what does that look like for Sandy? I'm pretty sure you heard of what Freeport looked like and things like that. So what does that look like?
I was assistant chief during Sandy. And that was October 29th, 2012.
Yeah.
We all know it and know it well.
Yes.
Because the key issue there is you have a responsibility as a volley, right, to turn out for runs during the storm when people need you. I said, but at the same time, you live in the neighborhood too.
Yep. Your family's
your own house
is underwater,
and your own stuff is being destroyed.
Your family and they're scared,
and you're going to rescue everybody else.
Yeah.
Sandy was an interesting night. So we had two teams of guys out. Apparatus were out early on. We were making for days leading up. We were making evacuation announcements.
Letting everyone know.
Driving around in a rig with a PA.
Wow.
Old school. And just saying, listen,
out.
Evacuation notice has been given by the mayor, and we recommend that you follow it. If you do not, we will have crews on duty. We're not evacuating the area; the volleys are staying. So we will have crews on duties. We'll have boats. We are going to do the absolute best that we can. However, we
don't make it hard on us.
We don't recommend staying.
Don't stay here,
because there's going to be a point where if this water comes up as high as they believe it was, which none of us believed that it would actually get that high. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we just said, listen, if water gets to a certain point,
we can't get to you.
We cannot get to you.
Yeah.
So we don't recommend staying. But we knew earlier in the day. So because we're in Jamaica Bay, and we have the rising and falling tide twice a day. So low tide was much earlier in the day that day, and the water never went out.
Yeah,
it stayed high.
It stayed high.
It was stayed at the high tide line, and we went, that's not good.
It's not good. This is not good.
So when the storm really started churning up, somewhere around 8 p.m. that night, those water levels were coming in, and then so did the calls
started going.
And the rigs were going back and forth and back and forth, and in
So now, did you
feet of water at the time?
Is this all because now is the city coming to help?
No.
Okay, so they're not in Sandy because we didn't talk about it yet, but the dynamic because you're in Queens, this city FDNY is going to come help. But for Sandy, it was just all Broad Channel Fire Department.
Yes, because the city couldn't get there.
They couldn't get there.
They couldn't get there.
Wow.
And we are the fire company there. So the FDNY responds in on a daily basis. We're assigned to the same alarms. We're going to the same calls. But in the event of major incidents like that, Sandy is the perfect example, and we're on our own.
Okay. So let's talk about that dynamic then, because you get a call. Let's say it's just the automatic alarm hits the box. What is FDNY and y'all are both showing up same time?
Yes.
So same time. Okay.
Yeah. Response times vary, obviously.
Yeah. You all are there, so
right.
But if you have a crew, that's the that's
the name of the game. So having the FDNY responding on a daily basis, even though we have our own we have our own dispatcher in quarters. We're self-dispatched.
Okay.
And we also have our own hotline that the town calls. So we do get hotline calls, that we go out on, and then we will call notify the city.
Yeah.
We're responding to this. They'll send the proper assignment, and they're essentially your backup. They're our mutual aid. But at the same time, which is the interesting dynamic, they are, because we're within the city of New York, we're within the municipality, they're the primary. We're the secondary.
Okay.
But often we arrive first due.
Yeah, because you're there. If you got a crew that's sitting there, you're first due.
That's it. If we arrive first due.
So how does that dynamic work? You pull up. Let's say we got a house fire. It's going. You pull up. You're first on scene. You start operation. They just supplement. They just come in and help out. Do they?
So
you got two engines. So let's say both your engines get out. So you're working. You got one there. You got one there.
So the key. I mean, the key is you've got to be strategic about it. Okay. So if you are the first due company, then you've got to still practice as if a full complement of apparatus is coming.
Yeah.
Leave the front of the building open for the truck.
Yep.
Right. Even though it's not your truck, you know what I mean?
Still
You know it's coming.
Yeah.
So you've got to leave the room. And what we would do, so I would say the city volleys, the best way to describe them is, maybe for lack of a better word, would be like we're quick attack companies.
Okay.
Get in, get water on the fire, start a primary, and by the time that happens, the city has already arrived if they're not there already.
Okay.
Right? And they're coming with,
everything
minimum for a structural fire, 3 engines, 2 trucks.
They're coming with everything.
Right? The battalion, the rescue squad.
Yep.
So you've got a lot of companies coming in quickly. So one of two things will happen. You'll get in, and if you've got a quick knockdown, everything's all right, great. They'll come in and mop it up. That's what'll happen. You'll back your line out. Okay. Or if it's going, okay, then we might be operating side by side.
Okay.
So because we have our own dispatch frequency and our own fire ground frequency, but the incident commander or the chauffeur of the engine prior to the incident commander arriving will carry 2 portable radios. So one will be on fire ground and one will be on FDNY fire ground.
Okay.
So we can communicate with them while they're operating, because they'll be like, hey, what do you got? Hey, we're going above. You know what I mean? We're going to go open up upstairs, and we're operating on the first floor.
You're working in tandem.
Yeah, you try your absolute best to have this, working relationship, because they're your other guys.
Yeah.
If one of us goes down, it's like any volley house. Sometimes you turn out with a light crew, the skeleton crew, maybe the C team at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, the old timers that are around at 12. Let's face it, you're going to need help. Yeah. You're not going to be able to do it, depending on what how big the job is. You're not going to be able to do it on your own.
That's right.
So play nice in the sandbox, because
you're going to need it. You're going to need the help.
You're going to need them boys at some point. You can't just have this. You can't have that attitude. Yeah. Like city versus volley attitude. That doesn't get anybody anywhere.
Nope. You're correct.
And we've seen it. It's happened. It's happened for decades and decades. Broad Channel's been in business for like 119 years.
Wow.
It's been there since 1905.
Wow.
Right? I mean, that's a long time to be operating, and 30 years of that was really on their own, because they hadn't even built the bridges yet.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, the bridges weren't built
so
for the 30s. So
they're just doing one of those boat kind of things if you need help.
You had to get, the FDNY had to get barged over.
Wow. Yeah, so the time that happened.
Yeah, oh my God, the whole neighborhood would be gone if there was no volleys.
If there was no volleys. Yeah, wow. That dynamic, I think, is great, the way that works, because in Long Island, we don't see that. You're right. We don't see that. We're not seeing FDNY come over here to Uniondale. No, I'm not saying that.
Right. Your mutual aid company isn't trying to beat you into the box.
No,
you know what I mean? They have their assignment, and that's what they're coming to do.
And they're coming to do. Even if it's standby at the firehouse, they're coming to stand by at my firehouse. Right. So it's that. Wow, that's a dynamic that a lot of volunteers don't even understand and know. So let me ask you a question about Broad Channel, because we had talked before, and you were saying that funding wise, like your equipment, your rigs, all of that stuff, how is this funded? Because I assume that if you're Queens, monies from the town and from taxes go to FDNY.
100% true.
So then,
your fire tax and the 2% goes to the FDNY. They're the municipal department.
Yeah.
For all 5 boroughs. Because there's 9 volley companies within the 5 boroughs. None in Manhattan, obviously.
Okay. Yeah.
But the outer boroughs have. There's 2 in Staten Island, 1 in the Bronx, 1 in Brooklyn, 5 in Queens.
Okay.
And the 5 in Queens are all within the same general area of each other. 3 companies in Breezy Point that all border each other. Ourselves in Broad Channel, which is only about 3 miles from Breezy. And then you have West Hamilton Beach, who's just over our North Bridge. And we actually have a couple of border boxes that we run in with together.
Okay.
And we share the same Jamaica Bay in between us that separates us. So we get a water job up at the north end. We'll run in with them too.
Run in with them. Okay.
And we do a lot of mutual aid for each other for EMS. Not for fire. It doesn't make any sense. Because by the time a mutual aid volley company turned out from 5 miles away, I mean, there'd be 40 FDNY trucks there by then. It's really silly. But EMS,
Person
absolutely.
is triaged and everything in the
Yeah,
hospital.
so it's already done. You know what I mean? Everybody's packing up already. But the volley companies all rely solely on door-to-door fundraising.
Wow.
Putting in for federal grants.
Okay.
Local grants, city councilmen, senators,
and things like that.
Things like that. Like Broad Channel's been trying to build a firehouse for 20 years.
Wow.
Trying to raise the money to get it. And every time that you feel like you're close,
you're far.
you're right, exactly. As to the economy, the cost of material goes up.
Or something else comes up that the money needs to be allocated
steel
to.
went up. Sandy hurt us, financially hurt us. That's because how do you go door to door and ask for money after every home in this neighborhood got hit hard? And people are paying out of pocket for their repairs because insurance, insurance or insurance didn't cover it. I didn't have flood insurance. You're gonna wait for a FEMA payout. Could take a year, 2 years.
And right now, this is your home. Now you're coming to knock on, talking about, can you give me $10?
We got financially hurt after Sandy, but we recovered. Obviously, we're still here, right?
Yeah.
But all the volleys rely solely on door-to-door donations or any type of outside funding that they can secure. Even if we try to, get like an adopt a fire department, reach out to big corporations
and say
who are looking for a tax write-off or something. Hey, listen, this is a great place. We're a 501c3.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that's,
how does that work? Does that help? Does that happen or?
Not as often as you would.
Well,
like,
let's hope with this show now, we'll be putting this out and let them know that Broad Channel is there and can use the help.
Broad Channel's got, website, Facebook, Instagram. They've got
which
all
we'll
that.
shout all it out.
And there's funding links, Venmo,
everything.
Any way that they can get funding to keep these doors open, because obviously, the cost of everything from our own equipment, fuel, insurance, I mean, you name it, and every one of those things every year goes up exponentially.
Yeah.
And it's getting harder and harder to survive.
Harder and harder. All right, so let's get into some stories. 93, I know you got, since you've been in since 93, you got some good stories. So besides Sandy, we kind of talked about that. Tell me one good memorable story. And it could be, fire or just hanging out, whatever you think. I would love to hear a fire story though.
We've had some good ones. I say good ones. But
of course,
from the fireman perspective, not from
of
the poor folks that you're responding to.
Yeah,
but people understand what we're talking about.
Yes.
We were always a very busy extrication department.
Okay.
There's only like 950 dwellings in Broad Channel. So the whole island is 3 miles long by about a half mile wide, but only a mile of it is populated. 2 miles of it is the Jamaica Bay Wildlife Refuge.
Okay.
So it's just trees and brush, and there's a long stretch of road there with no traffic light. About nothing. 2 miles of where people like to put the pedal to the metal and open up a little
bit. Okay.
It's the drag.
Right.
We call it the strip.
That.
That's the nickname for it. We call it the strip because it was like a drag strip.
Okay.
I mean, back in the day, we would go out on the especially on the weekends. The hearse tool wouldn't even get cold.
Wow.
You would go up for
people
a pin
out
job.
there dragging.
Yeah, and then 2 hours later, you were going back for another one. It's calmed down a lot. They've shortened they lowered the speed limits up there.
Okay.
They shrunk the lane. It used to be like a 4-lane wide highway. Now it's only 2. You know what I mean? They've slowed it down, and MVAs have dropped significantly.
Okay.
But regardless, we used to have a lot of pins, a lot of real interesting pins. A car all the way up in the top of a tree.
Wow.
Interesting dynamics.
It's so funny because we talked about cats and trees, but Broad Channel.
No, yeah, we got cars and trees. Yeah, cars and trees.
Cars and trees. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, this response, FDNY is coming, but for this situation, that Hearst tool is working.
Yes,
you're the first on scene, so you're there doing what you have to do immediately.
Oh, 100%.
Wow.
And I mean, fire-wise, again, we don't get a whole lot of structural fires down there.
Okay.
I mean, knock on wood.
Definitely.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
I said, but it doesn't keep guys in practice. So you can drill as much as you want and be proficient in stretching hose and scotting up. But there's nothing like when it's the actual fire. You know what I mean? And aside from going out to Nassau County Fire Academy, where all the city volleys train, I mean, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that is probably easily in the top 5, if not maybe the best fire academy in the whole country.
That's right.
For live burns.
Yes.
For actually getting in there and it being as close to realistic as possible.
So you go there. So that's great.
Yes,
so you get to go to
all the
FSA
city
and Old
volleys
Bethpage.
go out to Old Bethpage.
Go out to Old Bethpage.
And I mean, for at least, I don't know, the last 20 years, maybe more.
Is your time coming up soon? Because this is usually around the time.
We usually go in towards the end of September, late October. I mean, early October.
How many guys? Well, not just guys, but how many firefighters do you have? In Broad Channel,
like any department, you've got
your A, your B, your C.
You've got your roster on paper.
Yep.
And then how many guys do you have that you really see all the time? Yeah. So there's each of the city volley companies. Again, they're really small companies. So there's only 2 engine companies. How many people can you fit on an engine? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's only about maybe 35 members at the moment, even though that's nowhere near what we really need to run efficiently as far as we're concerned. Like, we would like to have like a 75-member roster. Okay. And that would, because you've got to spread it out. It can't be the same guys all the time.
That's right.
How can we all have lives and work and families, and
life is,
it's difficult to maintain. But about 35 on the roster, and probably
15,
8 to 10 guys that are your hardcore guys that you see on
there.
everything.
That you have there.
Which, listen, every volley house is completely different, and every volley house is exactly the same.
It's very true.
They're all the same. Same clowns, different circus.
There you go. That's all it is. So back to just the makeup of Broad Channel, right? Mm-hmm. So you said that the only way to get on there is over a bridge. I'm sorry, because I'm still like, a lot of people don't know about this. So just knowing that Broad Channel is there, you're going to have some people that's probably just going to want to drive by and just kind of go take a look and kind of look. But back to it only being one firehouse, right?
Yeah.
So how are the ranks? So you have chief, the captain of that company, lieutenants and everything like that. So you said you've held every single rank that you've had, right?
Yeah.
So what is your rank now?
Now I'm so our chief and assistant chief. There's only one of each.
Okay. So you have two chiefs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And there's
assistant.
It's
and
a small
chief.
department, so you don't have the baby chiefs and all that.
Yep.
It really there's
it's
not
need.
needed.
Yeah.
But they kept me on so they up there. They have the ability to appoint officers. So they just appointed me as a deputy chief.
Okay.
So it's like having an additional, like your baby chief.
Yeah.
So I can
especially someone with experience. So it's even better.
That's the key, because when guys move on and you lose all that training and knowledge and seniority for guys that maybe they go on to the FDNY, maybe they move out of the neighborhood, and you don't have somebody to replace that person, you know what I mean? That's a hard transition.
Yeah.
So you try to retain as many guys as you can. And I'm not saying that, that they're giving out titles. Just be,
hey, just have it.
Thanks, pat on the back. No, it's
a job.
Try to keep that knowledge there.
Yeah.
And in their absence, you can act in their absence
as the chief. Okay.
But I mean, I spend most of my time chauffeuring the engine.
Okay.
Even as a deputy chief, because we're so short on manpower that I'd rather the guys that are qualified as chauffeurs to still ride as bosses or in the back step, you know what I mean, to keep getting their experience. I've got mine. Yeah. You know what I mean? You need yours. So if you have to jump in the chauffeur seat every time, you're never going to get your burn time.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You're never going to get the hands-on experience that you need because our call volume is so low. We only run like 300 runs a year.
Wow.
You know? Okay. So where's your experience coming from?
Yeah.
If you're not riding in the back step and getting your hands dirty and practicing what you preach, you know what I mean, then you can't sit in the chauffeur seat all the time. You just can't. So let the senior guys, the guys that have already done it, let them be your chauffeurs.
Yep. And
you know, these are great people that can be a halfway chauffeur and halfway incident commander until the arrival of the incident commander. You know, every chauffeur that we have, with the exception of the active roster, they're all ex-chiefs. You know what I mean? So these are guys with knowledge, experience. You know, they can guide you along until the chief arrives and takes over. You know,
and be there. So I got a question about just when it comes to, you know, broad channel, just the makeup of, you know, versus the chiefs versus lieutenants. It's the same, meaning, you know, whoever shows up on scene, like let's say you said you were deputy chief appointed. So the captain is there. Mm-hmm. Captain still takes rank. Like how does that work? Being that you were appointed, are you still chief of the scene if the other chiefs are not there?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would be the highest ranking person.
You would still be the highest ranking person there.
Absolutely. Okay. I would say it's maybe more similar to the FD&Y's dynamic of how their chiefs and officers work.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So the captain of the engine, if he's riding in the officer's seat, then he's only worried about his guys. Okay. You know what I mean? He's got a job to do. He's going to go in and get dirty and do his job, and I will command from outside. Because you know, that's your eyes and ears.
Yep.
Until the city arrives.
Okay. So let me ask, which wouldn't happen, but you did say happened in Sandy. City doesn't arrive, right? You only have an engine. What's your equipment look like? Like, what does your equipment look like? Do you have truck equipment and everything on each rig? How does that go?
So our engines are set up like, I won't say squads. I'll say more like, let's call it like an enhanced engine, or maybe, you know, down south in Ohm, they call them like rescue pumpers.
Okay.
So full complement of truck tools.
All right.
We're carrying forcible entry saws, airbags, a large complement of ground ladders, because everything in Broad Channel is almost all private dwellings and a couple of two-story taxpayers. So there's only one large building, and it's the public school. It would be the only building that's really not reachable by a ground ladder. So everything is old school, what I would call old school firefighting.
Okay.
Throw ground ladders on as many sides as you can.
There you go.
Get your lines into the building. We run one's an 8-man engine and one's a 10-man engine. So we will fill that one of those rigs with as many guys as you possibly can and get as many hands on scene.
On there.
Okay. So when we arrive, even though we are an engine company, you know, we go to work as both. Guys will split up. So somebody, all depending on, just like any volley house, how many guys they have in a rig.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So what we would call like the must-fill positions. You need a nozzle and a backup.
Got to have that.
And you need somebody to start a primary search. And at the very least, you need an OV or at least somebody to start venting when called for.
Okay.
But it's a private dwelling. I can do most of my venting from inside. If I need to take a window, I will I'll take it as I go.
As you go,
you know what I mean? You take it as you go, right? You're making
so that kind of moves us into training, because that's what your training is. So I'm looking at, especially in Long Island, there's engine companies, there's truck companies. Though we cross train and do it, our main, for me, an engine company, I'm training on the engine, you know.
Right. Sure.
So, but for your team, they're doing everything.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
your trainings are everything. You're incorporating it all.
Right. So not like Long Island. I would assume. I mean, I don't know everybody's operations out here.
Yeah.
So you're assigned to an engine company.
You do that. I
you're
mean,
an engine guy.
Yeah. You know what I mean. You learn each. You cross train.
Yeah.
But your primary is engine. But for you, it's both.
It's both. So our guys, like we have a tour system in Broad Channel where we actually do duty shifts. In the off hours, then you're relying on the guys who are responding from home.
Okay.
But basically in the PM hours, when people get home from work, there are crews on duty every night to turn out as quickly as possible.
Okay.
And it's been like that since like World War II. It's a long time.
You also talked about earlier, before we started talking, you talked about people coming and joining that aren't from Broad Channel.
Yeah.
So that is a possibility. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so as the hard part is getting people from in town, and we learned that a long time ago, which is why they started taking membership from outside. Because those off hours that I spoke about, that's the hardest time to get people, right? Because that's the time that you have to rely on the people who live in the neighborhood to respond.
Yep.
I said, but those duty crews can give the people in the neighborhood a break.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So we have weekend warriors who come
That'll
down,
just come.
you know, right?
I'm
Who
gonna
come
for
down
2 shifts.
Yeah. So listen, it's hugely beneficial if they've already have experience and they've already got certs. You know what I mean? Then we can just familiarize and get you on the roster.
Get to work.
You know, and everybody has to make, you have to make your percentage of meetings and percentage of drills, not just like any other house. And a certain amount of points per year if you want to have voting privileges and things of that nature.
Okay.
But yeah, you got to, we'd love to take guys from outside while still trying to find that balance of an in-town, out-of-town ratio of members.
That's right.
Because
you don't want everyone out of town,
right?
Because response time.
You've got to have
people there.
At least 51% of your membership has got to live in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? You have to. How else are you going to accomplish what you need to accomplish?
All right. All right, so let's lighten things up a little bit. I'm pretty sure you saw the show, so we play a game called The Flashover.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So we're going to play the game called The Flashover. Basically, for the audience that are just tuning in, The Flashover is a game where I will ask the guest something like Android, Apple. They got to give me the answer really quick. But we're going to do TV shows and movies. All right? So, Chief, what is a flashover? Let's start there first.
All right, well, the easiest explanation is where everything in the, let's say, the room and contents reaches its ignition point and ignites.
Boom, just like that.
Let's call it that, right?
Boom, just like that, really
Just
quick.
like that.
So that is the premise of this game. We're going to do this really quick. So once I give it to you, you got to give me the answer.
Okay.
All right? Are we ready? Chief, are we ready for the flashover?
I'm ready, brother.
All right, here we go. Chicago Fire Rescue Me.
Never seen it, but
But
Rescue Me I
you saw
I'll
Rescue Me.
choose Rescue Me.
So you're going to, all right, Rescue Me Third Watch.
Never saw Third Watch.
Never saw Third Watch, so we're
Rescue
going
Me
with
it is.
Rescue Me again. I need to change some of these because a lot of people haven't seen these. I guess there's some new ones that came out. All right. I know you've seen this. Backdraft, Ladder 49.
Backdraft.
Backdraft. You saw Ladder 49 too?
I've seen it.
And you're picking Backdraft.
Oh, 100%.
All right. Now, this is a good question for you with one Firehouse, even though you got pumpers in there. Engine or truck?
It's engine.
It's engine. You're going engine. No. Put the wet stuff on the red stuff.
Absolutely.
You're doing that. All right.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love it. All right. But it's funny that you picked Backdraft over Ladder 49. Backdraft is like the holy grail.
Yeah. Well, it's that's what I grew up on.
That's what you grew up on.
You know what I mean? That Backdraft was, that came out in the early 90s. So
Yeah.
that was the first one I saw. So I'll stick with that.
Have you seen any? And you said you seen Rescue Me, but didn't see Third Watch or Chicago Fire or anything. But have you seen any TV shows or movies that kind of mimic what you do? Meaning, like that dynamic of Broad Channel. Have you seen that anywhere?
No. Well, there's nothing like Broad Channel.
There you go.
There
So
really
that
isn't.
means that they need to get a TV show out there.
There really isn't. So yeah, I can't say I've ever seen anything realistic
Yeah.
on TV or in a movie Yeah, because
First of all,
we all know exactly what it would be. The movie would be a black screen.
It would.
You know what I mean? So
Be it.
none of it is realistic.
Wouldn't see anything. All right, so really quick, a common myth that you want to debunk right now about firefighting, if you could think of anything.
So, without offending anyone who
I love a conversation that starts
be as PC as possible.
Okay.
I'm gonna say the idea, even though I get it for the recruitment of members to try to get people in the door, is I think it's the idea or the premise that anybody can do this.
Okay.
I don't believe that that's true.
All right.
I do not.
Anybody
there
can
are
do.
people who are not physically or mentally
Prepared for
capable of doing this job. Just because you volunteered to do it doesn't mean it's not a job.
That's right.
It is a job.
That's right.
And it requires you to put in full effort. So if you are not physically strong enough
To do it.
if you are not mentally strong enough, emotionally strong enough, you will find out quickly.
That's right.
That
Go to one of those MBAs where you have to pull out the
This
Harris
is
tube.
not for everybody.
That's right.
So now I'm not trying to deter people from coming in the door and finding out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're 60 pounds soaking wet and you've never lifted anything heavier than a pen, you're not going to magically gain enough muscle to carry a partner saw up a 24-foot ground ladder.
Or pull me out.
You know what I mean? I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's almost like know what you're getting into. I don't think some people realize
and
that.
maybe people won't know until they get in and see it for themselves, and that's understandable. So by all means, like I know in our department we have jobs for everybody, but firefighting is not for everybody.
Yeah.
EMS is not for everybody because we run 2 ambulances as well, but we have dispatchers. We have volunteer dispatchers because we are a self-dispatch department. We have an auxiliary department.
Okay.
That assists in fundraising efforts, because we all have to fundraise.
That's right.
But sometimes it's too much on the roster to have to give up weekends to go fundraise and turn out for runs and go to drills and training and and go out to FSA and especially new guys, the amount of classes that they've got to take just to become firefighter 1.
Yep.
I mean, this is a lot more than when I started.
Yeah.
When I was started, it was here's the hose. You know what I mean? Let's just shoot that there.
Right there. And,
right? Yeah. And if you come running out and say this is too hot for me, then they'll be like, see you later, kid.
See you later.
Yeah.
Listen, I love that. So really quick, before we end, first, if you can shout out like the Instagrams, the Facebooks, and how someone can reach out to Broad Channel if they want to join or if they want to donate. Companies, anyone, how would they reach out?
So their website is broadchannelvfd.org.
Okay.
They're Broad Channel Volunteers on Facebook, and pretty sure they're Broad Channel VFD on Instagram. There's links in there for membership applications, for donations. They have Venmo. There's all different avenues to get in contact with us. You can, message the Facebook. You can send an email to chief@broadchannelvfd.org and get a response. There's a million ways to communicate. You can call the house directly. Then it's a public number.
Okay.
Listen, there's a million ways.
There's a million ways to get there. There's a million ways to get there. There's only one way to get into Broad Channel, though, right?
Well, yeah.
One way to get in, but
you got to cross a bridge.
Got to cross the bridge. All right. So, last question for you. If there is someone right now that is listening that wants to join any volunteer department or is in right now, they just started, what kind of advice can you give them?
Put your phone down.
I like that.
As me, I said to my guys a little while back, but it didn't get instituted, but maybe it's going to be, is because we do these duty shifts, for those couple of hours that you're there on duty, we want you to be on duty. So we were going to take a lockbox
and put phones in
and
it.
put the phones in it and lock them up until you're done with tour. So because you have this younger generation coming in, you know, that are reliant and fixated on their phones because it's their source for everything. And I understand because it's all they've known growing up. Young guys, you know, the 18 to 20s and stuff like that. And you can't put the fire out with your phone.
That's true. You can try to throw it at it. That's not going to do anything.
You can't.
You can do like the fake stream that's on there. That's not going to work.
No, you can't. You can't Google. You know
how to do this.
Yeah, how to pop this door with the tool. Now's not the time.
Yeah, no.
You've got to know it, and you've got to be hands-on the whole time, because the only way to develop the skills that you need is building that muscle memory, and your phone is not going to teach you muscle memory.
That's true. I love that. Listen, Chief, thank you so much for coming out. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. We just heard from Chief Ed Wilmarth. I said it right. The third. From the Broad Channel Fire Department about his life as a firefighter. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Please like, share, subscribe, do all those things. I am your host, Chris Moses, and please tune in next week for another great conversation in the Firehouse.